This is Robert Merdlacci of the MindShare Learning Report, Canada's Learning and Technology e-magazine. And welcome to this week in Canadian EdTech MindShareTV unboxing edition featuring Clever, the digital learning platform for K-12 education. And joining me today is Federico Velarde, who is an educator and account executive, district partnerships from the international team. Thank you for joining me today, Federico.
Thanks for having me, Robin. I'm very excited to join you.
And it was great to connect with you at the Education Research and Development Institute in Victoria, BC. Sorry, the weather wasn't typical as it is today. It's not quite spring, but nonetheless, great conversations and great connecting with you. A little bit about Federico. He's an account executive, as I mentioned, on the district partnerships team at Clever. And he began his career in education as a grade 3 teacher at a dual language school and has spent the last 6 years in partnership with the school board technology leaders to streamline EdTech in their schools. Federico is committed to making educational technology equitable and accessible for students everywhere. Wow, that's a very noble mission statement from you. What inspired you to go into education, Federico?
Yeah. Well, I started my education career as a teacher. My mother was a teacher and had always instilled the value of education in me. And, my family had immigrated to the U.S. and education changed their lives. And I wanted to do that the same and provide the opportunities that education imparted on me. So that was part of the inspiration. When I was teaching, yeah. And, when I was teaching in the classroom, I saw how technology could potentially transform and reach my students who at the time lived in a world where they were immersed in technology outside of school. So fast forward to today, that's kind of what brought me at Clever as well. I know that technology has a lot of promise and I see what it can do for children. So I see technology and education just blending two pieces of me that I'm particularly passionate about.
Amazing. Talk to us about the Clever platform. It really streamlines and creates efficiencies, and there's a lot of complexities in the teacher's days. So you aim to solve a lot of those challenges.
Yeah, that's right. Clever at its core is a platform that powers digital learning. And what that really means is, there's so many layers to this, but I think at its core, it's we're the ones who are able to connect the data and applications that schools rely on day in and day out for instruction. What that means is that teachers can think about, getting logins figured out or getting accounts set up almost as an afterthought so they can get directly to learning. And when I was a teacher, one of the biggest barriers to using tech in my classroom was all the time it would take me before class or in planning to set up devices or set up technology. And then also all the time it would take to get my students to log into their program. So we've been really trying to tackle those frontline issues in education technology for the last 10 years. And we've seen a lot of success doing it. Oh, Robert, I think you're on mute. I can't hear you.
To the tune of 75% of schools in the US, and now you're turning your attention to Canada.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Robert, we currently actually have 30 school boards in Canada representing 1,000 schools, Canadian schools, that is. And the way that we've seen this for the last few years is that school boards have reached out to us, asking us to help them solve the same problems that they're seeing in the classroom. I think it just leads us to know that these technology challenges are universal in the modern classroom. When teachers have access to tech, when students have access to tech, come all of the promises and exciting things that come with it, but also all of the challenges for administrators. So as we thought about continuing to enact on our mission of providing an equitable education and making digital learning work better for everyone, we really do think that means everyone globally, including Canada. So we're excited to continue working and partnering with those 30 school boards, but also continuing to expand the good work that we do.
Well, brilliant, and kudos to you for the impact that you're making nationally and internationally now. And why don't we give them a glimpse, our viewers, a glimpse of what it's all about?
Sure. Let's go ahead and do that. So to get things started, this is basically, I'm going to show you a couple of experiences, but what I really want to show you here is the student experience, because ultimately, when we think about education, we're doing it all for student learning. Now, this is the Clever Portal, and the Clever Portal is that one place where students and teachers and even staff members can securely access their digital learning. Now, you'll notice here that this is a demo account, but any school board or even school for that matter would have their own landing page that they manage and adjust to their needs. And you'll notice that schools and school boards can choose the identity provider of their choice. But what I'm going to go ahead and demo is one of the challenges that we see with our youngest learners or with students with accessibility needs. And that's how to log in easily without compromising security. So I'm going to show you one of our most beloved products, the Clever Badge Login, Robert. So students would just click on that badge icon and their webcam would actually appear. You can see me here on the screen.
Right.
I'm going to use a QR code to actually log in and authenticate into the Clever portal.
That's
and just
impressive.
like that, the students, exactly, very impressive. And this is a feature that's been around for about 6 years. And ultimately, when we think about digital security, it's helping school boards move away from simple passwords or passwords that are written down on paper on a student's desk to a physical credential that allows them to log in easily to their platform.
And you're on point, given the cyber safety and security challenges that school districts are facing today. They're one of the most vulnerable sectors, are they not? And you address that in your platform.
Exactly. What we've learned over the years and what we're continuing to see today is that too often phishing attempts are exposing simple passwords or exposing password formulas that are easily guessable. And Clever is partnering directly with school boards and providing tools to prevent that or to reduce that threat. So a Clever badge is an easy way to get students logged into what they need to access in the school day easily without compromising their passwords. And again, the Clever portal is a very student-friendly version of what maybe adults would have is kind of their own one-stop shop. But every single resource that they would have access to that it's authorized by the school board or by the school would be made available for students. And they would have one-click access into a resource. They could favorite different resources that would appear at the top. And also, they can go down to their individual teacher's page. So if you're a student that has multiple teachers or enrolled in multiple classes, a teacher might be able to make their own page and set up their own resources, their own curriculum into their own page. Now, the other really great thing about the student view is that embedded within Clever, and this is something that many of our districts like to use, is student-teacher messaging. So teachers can communicate directly with their teachers within the Clever portal. And teachers as well have a really robust way of messaging students or even parents for that matter. So really simply,
so
this
no
is
email necessary.
like.
You don't have the email threats and challenges, the phishing vulnerability and all that. That eliminates that challenge.
Exactly. And you know, again, we know that school boards opt for email for their older students, and we've seen messaging work really well in like those K through, grade 2 ages. So a really neat tool for teachers that want to reach their students, but their students may not be may not have that same level of access to their email accounts. So I'm going to go ahead and log out here, Robert, and I'd like to actually show you the teacher view.
Sure.
So let me go ahead and get that set up. Great. Can you see this now, Robert? All right. So here's the teacher view. You're going to notice it's a little different than the student view. And teachers have an entire, they have access to an entire suite of robust tools. Again, the resources that teachers are adding that are approved by the school board can be viewed here. The school board can create their own district page that's universal across all teachers with some of their most high priority resources, like let's say Google Classroom or some of the other learning tools. And lastly, teachers can create their own pages that are going to be shown to either the class or the classes that they teach. And within those pages, teachers can add applications, they can add links, they could even add PDFs into their own page for their students to access. And on this left-hand toolbar, this is something that we actually get a lot of positive feedback on. Teachers are able to see who's logged in and who's logged out. So the student that I had actually logged in with the QR code, Agnes Rippin, is the student that is currently logged in. And again, when we think about managing credentials or managing logins, the biggest thing that we heard from technology administrators is what a challenge it is to address issues in real time. Because at the end of the day, when a student can't log in, a teacher is not necessarily able to stop everything in class and address that issue, right? That means that that student loses learning time and they're going to have to address it after the learning session. With Clever, if that student's badge is lost or if they ripped it for whatever reason, a teacher could go into their Clever page, download that badge, and or get a backup login code for that student to accelerate their accelerate that kind of lost learning time, get them into the product, and get them learning ASAP. So it's a really neat tool to address some of those issues in real time.
Impressive. And just for clarity, these apps are licensed apps by the district or free apps that are approved by the district. So there's a mix of various applications that are available on the platform.
That's exactly right. Yeah. These are all resources that the school board approves and has licenses for. On the other hand, there are probably going to be some free resources that a school board will approve. And we know, many provinces, I know for a fact that British Columbia has, adjusted standards and really values teacher choice. And teachers are going to go out there and look for resources that are going to make an impact in their students' learning. So Clever allows those school boards to, give teachers access to those free resources in a safe and kind of self-contained environment. And the really neat thing about all that, Robert, is that teachers also have analytics at their fingertips where they can see which resources students have accessed and when. They can also
That was
see.
my next question. I was curious
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, and this is kind of rare, Robert. What we saw before Clever is that teachers are having to go to each individual program and either download a summary report or download multiple reports and kind of try to compare apples to oranges in a way, where it was really challenging and time consuming. And most often teachers weren't doing that. With Clever, teachers are actually able to go into their single page and access all the analytics at their fingertips and even have a weekly overview of who's logging into what. So it's a really powerful tool that I think empowers teachers to look at data, use data, and make the necessary interventions in the classroom.
And it's my sense that it would also presumably be a time saver and create efficiencies, which time is always a challenge for teachers. They can never have enough of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the biggest reasons why school districts and school boards use Clever and see Clever adoption, be so successful with their teachers is because it does indeed save time from the point of logins to troubleshooting logins to, looking at data. Clever is really about streamlining EdTech and again, implementing EdTech almost an afterthought. So teachers and students can get directly to learning.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I have one last view that I'd like to show. This is
Absolutely.
all good, right? This looks like a really neat tool, but I think often what we hear from our school administrators is, how do I go about managing all of this, right? Well, administrators have access to their own Clever dashboard. And this is really the behind the scenes work that the unsung heroes that our IT administrators have to typically work on. So gone are the days of formatting, custom CSV files and sending them out to each individual vendor. And now we're in the days where Clever can manage that for you through direct integrations to your student information system. And going back to the question, are these programs that the school board has authorized or purchased? That's exactly right. We're empowering school boards to be able to manage their data centrally in one place and also have robust and safeguards over what data is being shared with each individual application. So each application should only have access to the data where the program or the vendor has those licenses, right? So for example, if Newsela is used in grades K through 5, then Clever can support a setup where they're going to send data over to Newsela for grades K through 5, have all of those license provisioned in a single day, and also be able to support single sign-on for those users who are accessing it.
Fascinating. Now, presumably at the end of the year, when it's all done, districts have to evaluate uh, apps usage and renewal of subscriptions. Does that enable you with this data to make some of those critical decisions?
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's exactly what we've seen with some of our customers. I'll get into a story actually here in a moment, but I'll go ahead and share portal analytics, Robert. So one of the things that's really beneficial about Clever and having all of your resources in one place, again, is being able to compare, you know, apples to apples, or potentially, uh, grade level to grade level, or school to school. Often we see a lot of districts invest a lot of resources into particular initiatives. For example, early literacy, where they buy a program for all of the students in grades 1 or 2 at their school board. Well, with Clever, what they can go ahead and do is use analytics to filter down to the specific grade level. And in this case, I'm going to just filter for grade 1. And then they can go ahead and see which schools are using Clever, or which schools are using particular resources, and potentially which
Wow.
schools are not. So it's a really powerful tool for those instructional leaders or even those technology leaders to understand whether or not their licenses are being accessed, and how to take the appropriate steps to intervene and potentially support the schools or the individuals' classrooms where that's not necessarily happening.
Well, I was going to ask you about a success story, and that's certainly one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the, and I'll stop sharing my screen here. One of the success stories, and this was happening at a time where one of my colleagues was working with a school district in California. This is actually one of the larger school districts in California. They had about 43,000 students. And essentially, what they were struggling with were slow ed tech rollouts and really low engagement with their resources. And the district leaders were handpicking learning applications to support student learning, but those slow rollouts and inconsistent access to those programs on day one ultimately resulted in fewer than 20% of their students who had access to the program actually engaging with those investments. Um, and they were looking for solutions, and ultimately their technology and instructional teams decided to go all in on Clever. After the Clever implementation, after talking to teachers, what they started to see was that the ease of use of those customizable teacher pages had their own educators using Clever enthusiastically. And then also logging into those resources was no longer disrupting class time like it was before. So what was really great, and what they've told us, is that the learning apps were now serving to support the curriculum team and the instruction is originally intended. And after Clever, they actually saw student engagement boost to 90%. So that utilization of those resources, of those hard-earned investments, actually increased due to the Clever implementation. And ultimately, one reason I'm really proud of this story is that the changes that Clever was able to facilitate helped create that true partnership between the technology personnel and the instructional leaders to really just streamline the EdTech implementation and get to learning, which is often the missing ingredient when it comes to some of those EdTech implementations.
Amazing, and I could see the value in bringing equity across the district and in empowering all kids and helping them thrive through tools that are accessible to all.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Equity is such an important part of our mission, and how we started at Clever. That when it comes all the way from the student experience and making it accessible and equitable for our youngest learners, all the way down to ensuring that teachers are supported and can actually get students into the technology that's going to make an impact.
What about from a professional learning perspective? I'm a teacher, and this platform just coming into my classroom. Is it fairly intuitive? It seems to me, but I presume you offer some professional learning and ongoing support.
Yeah, yeah. So Clever does offer a lot of professional learning for end users and for teachers. Um, we have seen that the program is fairly intuitive, Robert, to be honest. Teachers typically pick up single sign-on relatively easy because they can click on an icon and they're into their resource. But when it comes to all of the other tools within Clever, there is a fair amount of learning that can happen. And we have an entire suite of self-paced professional learning embedded within the Clever portal for any user, a teacher, an administrator. We call it the Clever Academy. And it's a highly sought after, I like to think, highly rated set of courses that allow teachers to get more familiar with Clever, to become more familiar with our product, and ultimately earn badges and become Clever champions. So we're really proud of what we've been able to develop with the Clever Academy.
Congratulations for really doing your homework and meeting the needs of educators and leaders. If I'm a school district or if I'm a teacher, talk to me about how our Canadian folks can learn more on how to access a demo or get in touch with you for that matter.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So there are a couple of ways. I think first off, in my experience, a lot of our school leaders are fairly knowledgeable and love doing their research. We have plenty of resources on our website, clever.com, that are going to really present our product, and we leave nothing under wraps. We're fairly transparent with everything that we do and how it all works. So our help center, our documentation is all out there for anyone to go through. But if you're excited to learn more and want to engage with us, we're actually hosting a webinar on Thursday, May 18th, where we're going to be talking a little bit more about cybersecurity. We've released a report called the Clever Cybersecurity Report in early 2023, earlier this year, where we interviewed more than 4,000 educators. So we're going to be sharing a little bit of our findings and how Clever is addressing cybersecurity through some of the
Amazing.
administrative tools like identity management and also multi-factor authentication. So that's Thursday, May 18th. And Robert, I'll make sure that I drop the link in the registration page for folks to look at.
Absolutely. We're happy to share that in our upcoming Canadian EdTech report going out this Friday. So, and you'll be in it as well. So, with that, final thoughts to share, Federico, in our conversation today.
Yeah, just wanting to thank you for having me and allowing us to share a little bit more about Clever. And for those that are interested to learn more, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're at Clever on Twitter. You can email me at federico.velarde@clever.com. More than happy to have a conversation, and really excited to continue supporting schools in Canada to support their technology rollouts. So thank you.
Thank you again, Federico Velarde, educator, account executive, district partnerships, and the international team at Clever. My name is Robert Merglanchi, the Mindshare Learning Report. Be sure to check out www.mindshare.learning to get your latest issue. And until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve steep.